Morning all, how's it going? You know, it might not seem this way when I'm in the middle of a tirade, but I'm not always angry. Some days I'm merely a little bit pissed off, and some days I have to stoke the coals. And what I'll do is I'll peruse the newspapers with my cup of tea on a morning, and if nothing really infuriates me, then I'll have a look on LBC or Talk Radio, and I'll see what's going on back in Blighty, you know, once I've read the local news, and I'll see if anything across the pond fuels my fire. And this fucking story I'm about to share with you made me more angry than anything I've heard in quite some time. Now, fair enough, that might only be a week or two for me, because lots of fucking things make me angry. But this takes the fucking cake, and I just want to play it for you, and obviously add some comments. It is fucking unbelievable. Like, I'm inviting you all to me now in a rage fest, because if you can listen to this and not get angry, you're a better man than me. You're a better man than Jesus. And we all know he would let you slap one cheek and then happily turn the other one in your direction, the mad cunt. I mean, that's just bonkers, isn't it? I've never understood that about Christianity, personally. You can forgive your own enemies, but you can't forgive mine for me on my behalf. Because I don't want you to forgive them. I don't want to forgive them. I want to fucking ruin them. I would prefer, if someone slaps you on your left cheek, break dance on his fucking head, and then do one before the coppers arrive. There's a better one. But not as poetic, is it? Anyway, I'm now going to invite you to join me on this wonderful journey. Because if you can listen to this and get to the end of it, I mean, I'll put the link on so you can just listen to the 12 minutes without me interrupting. But if you can get to the end of this 12-minute video and not be filled with fucking hatred and loathing and contempt for the people that not only carried out the crimes, but our government departments and ministers who facilitated their actions, then you're a better man than me, Jesus, Gandhi, and any other fucking hippie you can think of. Let's begin.
Rochdale grooming gang has met her abuser face to face, but while out shopping in Asda. This was not some kind of victim perpetrator meet in order to try and understand crimes. This should never have happened. Adil Khan was jailed for 8 years in 2012 after being convicted of trafficking and conspiracy to engage in sexual activity with a child. He was released in 2016. He was supposed to have been deported back to Pakistan. He appealed against that and lost that appeal in 2018, but still remains in the UK. How could this happen? Maggie Oliver is a former Greater Manchester police detective, and of course
Right, that's self-explanatory. I don't need to cover it again. And I'm not going to, because this woman does a much better job than I could. Well, less swearing. She's much more polite than I would be, but she sums it up now. And just compose yourself and listen to what occurred. You're talking about a fucking big, hairy man, a grown man, a man who was born in Pakistan, raping a child repeatedly and getting her pregnant when she was, I believe he started shagging her when she was 12, and he had her pregnant when she was 13. And even the fucking Germans don't go that low when it comes to fucking age of consent. The filthy bastards.
What you might say a whistleblower. You're also a consultant on the documentary or the programme, the drama, that looked at this story called Three Girls. Maggie, nice to have you with us. Hi.
Hi there, Ian. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. Now, listen, this just seems beyond comprehension that we would not only have... we'll get into how long it took to even get this case known and moving anywhere near a courtroom in a moment, but how could we be in a place where someone who's guilty of the kind of crimes that I just mentioned there is told that after serving a prison sentence will be deported back to Pakistan, but is shopping in Asda and bumps into one of his victims? How could that even be a thing in this world?
Ian, that's a question that I ask myself time and time again. The way you've described it, actually, I feel underplays the magnitude of this. First of all, I'd like to say that this is not a solitary example of this. This is something that I've heard several times from several victims in Rochdale. But the man that you're talking about, the paedophile, Adil Khan, he was sentenced in 2012 as a result of having got this particular 13-year-old child pregnant at the age of 13. I was a police officer, as you know, and the drama Three Girls covered this story, or part of the story of this particular victim. He wasn't charged with rape, even though we had a fetus, even though we had DNA to prove paternity of that fetus. Despite that, the CPS chose not to charge him with rape. The result of that was that this man, and I have to say that he was convicted of sexually abusing other children, but not charged with any rape. As a result of those charges, this man was actually sentenced to 8 years, but he was out of prison less than 4 years after the trial in the middle of 2016. He, together with two other of the abusers, both had dual nationality, and in sentencing it was decided that they would be extradited following their prison sentence. They came out of prison and...
You just know where this is going to go, don't you? You know. These scandals have cropped up in America and in the United States, and I can't fucking express how angry they make me. If someone breaks the law in a really awful way, like, I can understand if they do something minor. If you were just like a crackhead and you got caught burgling, yeah, there's a crime that I've got almost a liberal tolerance for. Like, burglary is an awful, shocking crime, and you're violating people there. But they're not doing it out of malevolence to the person. Most times, a person who's burgling is doing it for addiction. Like, most people who are breaking into a house to steal a TV are doing it so they can sell the shit they steal to buy drugs or booze or whatever their poison is. Now, you can make the case that it's a fucking shocking crime, and I'm not one of these fucking lefties who doesn't think you should be jailing people for burglary, because it's shocking. But it's not like mugging someone. Like, burglars, some of them might be people who wouldn't carry out a violent crime, either for moral reasons or for pure cowardice. They wouldn't, like, pull a flick knife on a 80-year-old woman or knock the shite out of her to steal her money. Because if they were willing to do that just for drugs, then that'd be much easier, wouldn't it? Literally, like, if I needed money really badly, the fucking best thing I think is to just stand round the corner from an ATM, a cash machine, wait for a daft cunt to go up and use it, and then just jump out and go, give me that fucking money, you cunt. Like, that's pretty easy. But that involves violence and threats and menace, and I think a lot of people just think, I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll creep in someone's house and, like, grab a bit of jewellery. So if you do something like that, and you're born abroad, I can almost understand the government sort of letting it slide. Like, we said they should be deported, but it wasn't a priority because it's a non-violent crime. It'd be annoying, but I could get it. But if some fucking cunt, some monumental thunder cunt, a shithead, a fucking rat bastard of such staggering proportions that they would donkey one into a 10-year-old or chop someone's fucking head off. When one of those people gets let out of prison and a deportation order isn't enforced, that makes me fucking incandescent with hate and rage, not just for the person that did it, but for the fuckhead civil servants, useless bunch of cunts that they are, that don't enforce these laws properly because they don't give a shit. They're still getting the salary, their ample salary. They're still getting their holiday pay. They're still going on vacation twice a year. They couldn't give a fuck. And people make it like I'm the crazy one because I empathise with the victims. That's why I get angry, because I think about what the victims go through and how that could have been stopped. And when they don't take steps to stop it, it fucking infuriates me. One that leaps into my mind straight away, going on a slight tangent, is it reminds me of J.C. Dugard, because this is the point I always make with people that are like really, really left-wing on crime and punishment and just think you should just always err on the side of the criminal and let people's human rights, respect people's rights. J.C. Dugard, a lot of Americans won't have heard of her. I was over here. I think I was on vacation when it was all over the news because they found her. So she went missing in 1991 and fucking nearly 20 years later, they found her because she'd been kept in a fuck dungeon. Well, it was like a weird collection of like lean-tos and sheds, chained up in the backyard for like 18 years. Call me a bluff old traditionalist. That's probably a bit worse than merely getting your drink spiked. She got fucking kidnapped and incarcerated and raped for 18 years, like your entire life. Fucked. Suffering and torture and pain for 18 years. And I remember getting really, really angry about it at the time, because it turned out that the guy who did it, a cunt called Philip Garrido, this twat, was arrested and charged with sexually assaulting a 14-year-old in 1972, but it didn't go to trial, right? Then in 1973 he was abusive to his missus. Then in 1976, this is the big one, kidnapped a 25-year-old woman, took her to a warehouse, raped her for 5.5 hours, and then by sheer good fortune, a police officer noticed a car parked outside the unit and that there was a broken lot. So the copper knocked on the door and was greeted by the rapist. And the woman, I remember reading the long form version, when there was a knock on the door, he was like raping the woman and he had a knife to her throat. He told her, don't make a single sound, or if you do, I'm going to murder you. And then he went and answered the door to the copper, and then as he was talking to the copper, she had the courage to just smash through like a partition wall while he was talking to the copper. So he threatened her and thought she was being compliant, and then when she saw her opportunity, she had the guts to do that. And if she didn't, she'd probably never have got found and released. He did all of that, fully kidnapped a woman, drove her miles away, raping the shit out of her for 5 hours, threatened to murder her. And they convicted him, sentenced him to 50 years in prison, because obviously it was a horrifying, brutal rape and attempted murder and kidnapping fucking charge. But they let the cunt out in 1988. So he only did 11 years for that crazy fucking crime. And the point I'm getting at is this: if they'd put him away for 50 fucking years for the first crime, he would never have been able to get out a mere 11 years later, snatch this young girl from a fucking family, and then keep her in his fuck dungeon for 20 fucking years. So her suffering and pain was purely the fault of the liberal fucking do-gooders who think it's a good idea to let dangerous, murderous rapists out of prison after a paltry 10-year fucking spell. Do you see the point I'm getting at? So these pieces of shit have usually been through the legal system, and we let them get away with it. We charge them and we criminalise them, and then we let them out, and then instead of fucking aggressively, with maximum fucking aggression, deporting them as quickly as we can, we just go, fuck it, not my job. And then they do it again. So the suffering on the behalf of these people is purely down to, it's not even entirely their fault, is it? It's like 50-50. Like, it's 50% the fault of the perpetrator and 50% the fault of the fucking cunt, the useless, no good, lazy, rat fuck, scum-sucking shit weasel that works for the state, that doesn't enforce the law and the deportation order. And it fills me with rage. Unfucking believable. Let's let them continue for a bit.
And they challenged that decision based on their human rights, that they had a family here and they should not be sent back to Pakistan.
Human rights, see? Fuck human rights. You don't get any if you do shit like this.
After 2 years and millions of pounds of taxpayers' money, they lost that appeal. And that was back in 2018. Now, a few weeks ago,
and we paid for the appeal. So they got found guilty, they raped little kids, and then we spend millions of pounds allowing them an appeal, and then they lose the appeal, and then we still don't deport them. You have to laugh, don't you? You have to laugh or you'll give yourself a fucking rage aneurysm.
The girl that this man had got pregnant when she was just 13 was shopping in Asda, and she walked round the end of an aisle with her own children and came face to face with the man who got her pregnant when she was 13. He was in unsupervised contact with another child of about 7 years old.
And then she bumps into him in Asda by accident. Dirty fucking rapist. And he's there leering at her. Convicted child rapist. 4 years in prison. Massive human rights appeal. Paid for by us. Loses the appeal. Doesn't get deported. Hounding his victim again. And lining up another one who was apparently 7 years old.
She told me, and she fled from the store in absolute panic. She got outside the door. The first person she rang was me, saying, Maggie, I've just bumped into Billy. He's in Asda, he's in Rochdale.
Billy was the name that he used, wasn't it, during this time?
Yeah, the street name. Now, the questions that raised...
The BBC will love that, they'll report it. Billy the Rapist. They like an anglicised name. Billy the Rapist. They don't want to tell you he's called fucking Abdul.
There are many. First of all, what about the human rights of the child? She is living in Rochdale, and she now has to walk around that town every day thinking that she might bump into this man. The second thing is that because this man wasn't charged with rape, he was out of prison in less than 4 years for a horrendous...
Less than 4 years for fucking a 12-year-old. So you tell me, can they consent or not? Can a 12-year-old consent or not? I don't think they can. If they can't consent at 12, how is it not rape? How? Like, what legal mechanism are you going to use to tell me it's not rape? Answers on a postcard. Anyone. Send this video to some lefty do-gooder you know, who's a fucking human rights lawyer, and please tell me how it is that you can fuck a 12-year-old and not get done for rape. I want to know.
Abuse. Thirdly, probation failed to approach her to even discuss the fact that he was being considered for probation after being in prison for less than 4 years. The first she knew that he was out and about was when she came face to face with him. And fourthly, I then referred this through lawyers to the safeguarding board to say, what is this man doing in unsupervised contact with another child when he's already been convicted of child abuse? To be told that his licence has now expired. He is no longer on licence, and there is nothing that they can do. Wow. So,
and there's number 4. So she said, oh yeah, and he's also communicating with a 7-year-old girl. And they went, yeah, but he's served his time. He's paid his debt to society. Nothing to do with us, love. Again, how are you not apoplectic with rage? How? If it was your 7-year-old, as far as I see it, you've got as much cause to be angry with him as you have with them. Is that not a fair one? Like, they know that he's a rapist, and they know he's talking to a 7-year-old, and they just go, yeah, nothing to do with us. Like, you're literally sitting... Who is this... If anyone here was sitting behind the desk, and this woman brings this information to you, you would act on it. You would go, well, technically there's nothing I can do, but still... You'd bang the drum, you'd ring your mate who's a copper, you'd sort of look into this, you'd keep banging the drum, ring the police, pester the police, hound your local MP. Any fucking thing. Fucking hell, slip 20 quid to a fucking local bricklayer and get him to go and cave the cunt's head in with a shovel. I don't know, but you'd do something.
So, I know in a way I sound a bit like a broken record, but these issues are current. This is not just one child that this has happened to. I can tell you of other children in Rochdale and actually in many other towns and cities around the country where this is going on, and it is hidden. If you go to the Home Office and ask for a statement about this particular case or even this particular man, they will say, as they have said, we don't discuss individual cases. But this is another national scandal that you scratch the surface of what is going.
Yeah, well, I can't go on anymore. If you want to listen to the whole thing, I'll leave the link in the description. But that's the top and bottom of it in 5 minutes, 6 minutes. It is unfucking believable. Unbelievable. Like satire. Like if someone was to lay this out to you in the pub, you'd think they were joking, like taking the piss. Like what? There's a bloke who fucks little kids and then he's texting a 7-year-old and the coppers and the government don't care. No, they don't. You go, that's like it's like a Steve Bell cartoon in The Guardian. Like he's writing a cartoon about the Home Office saying how they don't do the duty. That's what they're doing right now. How many times has this happened? How many people who should have been deported from the UK stroll out of prison and then fucking donkey one into a little kid, or chop some cunt up, or stab an old lady, or kick someone's fucking border terrier, whatever. There's going to be thousands of them, and every single one of them victims, that's who I'm thinking of when I've got a fucking rage boner. I I almost understand people giving up on politics and just getting violent. Like, seriously, I think if that happened, if my 7-year-old was the one in question, and a month later she got raped by a big hairy Pakistani bloke, I'd be angry enough. But if I then found out that he'd been in prison for it, been found guilty, imprisoned for raping a child, released, had an appeal, we paid for his appeal, he lost the appeal, we didn't bother deporting him anyway, and then when a woman told the authorities that he was contacting a 7-year-old and they didn't do anything about it, and then he rapes the 7-year-old anyway, I think I would lose my shit and literally kill the cunt. Like, I think it'd make me so angry, I would physically resort to violence. Like, the only reason the political process works and we stopped forming into tribes and just having a fight is because we decided a better way to do things was, I'll tell you what, instead of killing each other, let's have a vote, and then we might lose one year, but then the next year we might win, and if we can just handle the years when we don't win, well, that's better than murdering each other. That's basically it in a nutshell. Politics is another form of violence. Outsource the fighting part, and we just fight at the ballot box. But if you become convinced that the political process is failing you utterly, what's the point? And is there any better way of saying something has failed you utterly than you can't keep your own children safe? Like, the only reason we fucking exist is to propagate. We grow up, we fall in love, we have a family. If you can't even keep people's children safe from rapists and murderers, why haven't we lost complete faith in the system? Why bother? Why bother? There's no point in anything. There's no point in going to work and having a career and having a family if you can't even keep your family safe, and the state assists rapists and murderers with fucking with your family. Like, how? I'd love to hear a good counter argument as to why I shouldn't be fucking apoplectic with rage. I'd love to hear one. A sensible counter for why nobody's at fault and it wasn't malevolent and the government wasn't in on it and people don't essentially help the rapists. They're rape enablers. They might as well be fucking strapping them to the bed, handcuffing the cunts and slipping the Rohypnol in the drinks themselves. These self-loathing lefty fucking journos and activists who just want to whinge about human rights all the while little kids are getting raped and fucked to death. Seriously, I can't fucking get over it. I can't get over it. That people make apologies for these people. That you get human rights lawyers defending them when we've got... Like, is there anything worse than a crime against a little kid? I'm not a sentimental man, but I get angry when I think about little kids getting killed. The little girl, Safi, who died at the Manchester bombing. When I see her picture, I get angry. Better men than me might get weepy and sentimental. I just get the rage. Little girl blown to fucking bits by these fucking... He was another one. Parents were Libyan terrorists and we gave them asylum, and then he blows up an 8-year-old girl and we go, well, we didn't see that coming. The state is at fault just as much as the bombing. Poor little fucker. And it's the same here with these fucking scumbags. Like, seriously, I'm infuriated by it. Pretty needs to sort it out. Need to have a big red flag on these people when they go to prison, and the second they get released into custody. They let them out of the prison and they walk them onto a fucking bus and they take them to the airport and they force them on at fucking gunpoint and say, get on the plane, you mucky cunt. You are going back to Karachi or whatever shithole you come from, and you are never setting foot on British soil again, and if you do, you lose the fucking foot. You fucking cunt.
Horrible cunt.
Thoughts? I would love to hear a counter argument. Fucking Pretty, sort it out. Seriously. Pretty, get medieval on them. Don't make me start voting for people that will. And that's that. I'm going to go for a walk and punch the punch bag and drink some gin and fling myself around a bit until I'm not furious. I'll see you lot for the BBC News Roundup on the weekend. Cheers.